Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We know that levels of stress and anxiety are at an all-time high right now because of the COVID-19 pandemic. This time can be especially hard for individuals living with epilepsy and their families, because I'm sure, as many of you know, stress can be a trigger for seizures. So we are very lucky today. We have Dr. Sarah Vernon-Scott joining us to discuss coping with stress during COVID-19. Dr. Vernon-Scott is a clinical psychologist at the London Health Science Centre, University Hospital in London, Ontario. Her practice takes place in the Clinical Neurosciences Department, primarily out of the Epilepsy Monitoring Unit. Dr. Vernon-Scott acts as a consultant regarding diagnosis, often with respects to conversion disorders and comorbid psychiatric illnesses with epilepsy. And before we begin, just a quick note to our audience members. Please feel free to leave any questions in the comments section, and we will get to as many as possible in the last 15 minutes during our question and answer period. We just ask that you refrain from sharing any personal medical information. And without further ado, here is Dr. Vernon-Scott.
Hello there. So I'm going to try and share my screen so you can see the slides. There we go. All right. Maybe. There we go. Okay. Well, hi, everybody. I'm used to getting talks face-to-face, so we're all learning something here. But I thought I would just say hello to everybody before I get started. Looking forward to talking with you guys today, and excited to hear any questions that you might have. So, as Nicola pointed out, everyone's under a lot of stress at the moment, and that can certainly impact us in different ways. So, I wanted to talk with everyone today with some ideas that some of them might be familiar to you, some of them might be new to you. Just maybe some reminders of things that just generally help us manage stress, and how to kind of bump those up during this time when our normal things are kind of out of whack. So I thought I would tell you a little bit about what stress is. We all talk about it, so we'll just kind of define it and how it's affecting us these days. Point out some things that I'm sure are obvious to all of you living with epilepsy, but some things that are important to think about. And then we'll get into sort of some strategies. How do we go about coping with this the best we can? So my only dilemma when I was trying to put this talk together was, I don't want to overwhelm people. I don't want to give people too many things, but I don't want to leave you high and dry either. So I might throw a lot at you. Take what works for you. Ignore the other stuff or put it aside till another day or another week. Just wanted to throw out some different ideas because different things work for different people. So by no means is this a prescription of all the things you have to go and try and do tomorrow or today. So just some different ideas, and we'll see how that goes. So I also don't want to stress you out by talking too fast or giving you too much information, which I tend to do. So if we don't get through everything, that's okay too. We'll just roll with that. So everyone talks about stress. What is it exactly? Stress is kind of a normal thing that we all experience. It happens when the body when changes occur. So these are good changes, bad changes. Anytime we have to kind of regroup, make an adjustment, do something different so that we can, manage what's going on in our life, that's stress. So it can't be, eliminated even at the best of times. And it's actually can help us in some ways, which I'll tell you about in a sec. So it's basically our body responding to things physically, mentally, and emotionally when anything changes. So people are thinking, well, what good is it? Why do we have it? It's no fun to feel stressed out. But as I said, even good or positive changes can be stressful. So if you think of, you get a new job and you're excited and you're looking forward to it, but you then have to adjust to maybe a different commute, a different schedule, different coworkers, all these different things. So there are all those different adjustments that come along. But having some stress in our life actually helps us get through those kind of changes. So it kind of gets our juices flowing, gets our body working so that we can respond to things. So it's helpful to actually have some awareness of what's going on, feel a little bit of stress so that you do remember things like we've all been told, like washing our hands, not going out too much, and being able to problem solve through those things. So those help us mobilize the things that we can do to cope with it. And like I said, even at the best of times, you can't avoid it. And sometimes if you try to avoid it, it actually makes things worse. It creates new problems. So trying to figure out what is the stress I can deal with right now and how do I kind of cope with it is the best thing you can do with the stresses that you have. The only time stress becomes a big problem is if there's too much of it, or if it leads us to use what we call maladaptive or unhelpful coping strategies. So, some people who are maybe sleeping too much or overusing substances or different things like that. So those would be maladaptive coping strategies. Oh, sorry. There we go. Oh, I think my computer is not connecting properly, but my phone still is. So you can see me, but not the slides maybe. Is that right? Or the slides aren't changing on my end?
Yeah, it looks like maybe we lost your screen share.
Okay, let me see.
So sorry, everyone. Just bear with us for one moment.
These are the fun technical difficulties of COVID-19. So I don't know why it did that because I didn't touch anything. But let me see here. I'm gonna see if I can just rejoin it.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Are you able to reshare your screen?
It actually completely disconnected. Like it left, like it was just spinning. It wasn't. Anyway, if this doesn't work, I'll just talk at you and you'll have to look at me and not my slides. Yeah. It doesn't want to. It says Zoom can't be reached on my computer.
Okay.
I am connected to the internet. I had all these pretty slides, but we might have to carry on without them. Yeah, it doesn't want to connect to Zoom. Anyway, why don't I just talk at you? And if anyone wants the slides, I can send them to you later. Is that okay?
Perfect. Sounds good.
Since we're live and we don't want to spend all day watching me things on my screen. Anyway, so I was just going to talk a little bit about how stress affects the body and the mind. So these might not be a surprise to anybody who's feeling a bit stressed right now. Our body can react by having less energy. So everyone who's feeling kind of exhausted and wiped out right now, even though you feel like you're maybe not doing the things you normally do, and why would I be so tired? Stress makes you more tired. You can get things like headaches, muscle aches, tension. Your blood pressure can go up, your heart rate. It can actually affect your belly too. So some people are having stomach upset. So those are all those physical symptoms that come with stress. It can also make our minds feel very on edge, so feeling agitated. So everybody in your house that you're stuck with all the time is getting on your nerves. You might be feeling overwhelmed or having a hard time where normally you can turn off your mind and relax. It's harder to do that. You might feel kind of like you're not doing things right or badly about yourself. I know a lot of people I've talked to feel like they just can't stop their thoughts from spinning and spinning and spinning. And that's my clients, my friends, my family members, everybody right now. Just so many things to try and think about. Sometimes it makes you feel more forgetful. Just there's too many things. You can't kind of keep things straight. And then it's difficult to focus on the things that you really need to do or want to do. And then it just can kind of feel like a bit of like you've got black paint on your glasses. Everything looks dark, gloomy, negative. So stress can kind of just hit us in all these different ways. And then when we add in, and then things are moving. Sorry. There we go. Then you add in, the first global pandemic that most of us have ever experienced. And it's just like a whole new ball game. So we've got the obvious things that people are worried about, like, am I going to get sick? Are my family members going to get sick? If there going to be big financial ramifications if I'm not working or different things. And then one of the best ways to deal with stress, which we'll come back to later, is connection. And so your friends, your family members, your coworkers, all these different people that you normally can talk to about different things and, work through different things, you maybe aren't able to see them or talk to them as much as you're used to. So it just kind of adds some more pressure to the whole situation. And then even the people you love or like, your roommates, your family, it's hard to get along with everybody when you're all stuck together all the time. Most of us, go off in our different directions and then regroup. So, even the things that the people that you love and that you like to spend time with, they might be a little bit too much togetherness. And then the big thing really is that this has really screwed up all our normal routines. So humans really like certainty and we like expectability. People get this if you're parents, you get this for your toddlers, right? Like they have to go to bed at the same time, they have to eat at the same time, or they get out of whack. I tell people all the time, really, we're just more mature toddlers. Like we have better frontal lobes, but we really do cope better if we sleep well, we eat well, we get some exercise, we go outside. Just like you would think of for, your friendly neighborhood 3-year-old. So this whole pandemic has just thrown all that out of whack. So we're left with, now I don't know what to do when. I have to make a decision every 2 seconds, like where to put your phone so it doesn't fall down during a talk. I'll try to hold it maybe. Okay, I'll try that, see if that works better. Okay, and when you have to make a lot of decisions every single second, again, like where to put your phone. Okay. It's actually really exhausting. That's part of what's exhausting right now, is that you don't have those routines that you don't have to. Normally, if you're going to a job every day, you have to get up about the same time, go to the same place, do the same stuff. Now it's like, oh, when should I get up? What should I do now? Should I call my friend an hour later? Should I watch TV an hour later? Should I go outside an hour later? Because there's nothing external forcing you to do any of those things at any particular time, other than maybe rain or, darkness for going outside. But it's a ton of decisions that we're making every single minute, or every single hour at least. And it's really it wears you out. It just adds to all the stress that's going on. And then just some things that I was thinking about in terms of specifics for the people who are living with epilepsy or their families. As Nicola mentioned off the top, stress can lower your seizure threshold. So what I hear often is like, I don't like to hear that because I'm already stressed, and now you're telling me that that's going to make me have seizures, and that's going to make me more stressed. And you can see how that can kind of start to spin. And I only bring it up just because it's just that much more important to try and really think about how to take good care of your body and your mind at this point in time. Make it a big priority, put some energy toward it so that you can best manage your health. Another portion of that is just that a lot of people's sleep routines, because your other routines are out of whack, you're not sleeping the same way or not sleeping as well. And we also know that affects your seizures. So another reason to okay, if you're going to pick something to start with in terms of what healthy habits or routines do I need to think about, sleep might be a good one to really prioritize in terms of your management of your seizures. Also, if you've slept well, everything else is a little bit easier to deal with. It's easier to make all those other decisions. So that's something else to just put on your radar. Another thing I thought of is that if you're taking medications, once, twice, 3 times a day, if your other schedules are off, it's easy to forget. It's easy to think, oh, did I take that or not? I can't remember. So I'll touch on really quick later just a couple of things to try and help you remember, to take your meds when you need to. Some people I've been reading too is that if they're laid off or their family members are laid off from work, they're worried about medication coverage, paying for their drugs. Just the physical act of getting their medications can be a bit of a stressor until you get some things in place, like delivery or if someone can get them and things like that. And I was thinking about transportation, because I know so many of the patients that I talk to, if they're not able to drive and they're relying on buses or Uber or taxi cabs, that becomes a whole other kettle of fish right now. Do I want to get on a bus? Are the bus schedules changing? All these different questions, just more decisions and more things to think about. So those are some things I've been thinking about. Maybe when we get to the question period, there might be other things that I've forgotten. But so those are some things just to kind of set up where we're at in terms of dealing, what we're thinking about. So now what do we do? What are the answers here? The first thing that I always tell people is, and I've already sort of, spoiler alert, told you, routine. Routine is really good for everybody. Like I said, it helps you to maintain all those things that we know we need to do. It's super easy to say, get into a good routine. It is way harder to actually do that when you don't have things kind of forcing you to do it, right? So humans are, we say we're creatures of habit, right? So now all our habits are kind of out the window. So if you know, you set your alarm for 7 a.m. and you wake up and you go, well, like, I don't have to go to work, or I don't have to go to school today. Like, what difference does it make if I sleep till 8 a.m. or 10 a.m. or 12 p.m.? That is true, right? So it doesn't really matter in a lot of ways in terms of the demands of the obligations we have. But it does matter in terms of your physical health, your mental health, keeping yourself feeling well. So it's kind of, it takes a lot of, I hate the word willpower, but a lot of sort of self-discipline, and sometimes you need help from other people to help you build that routine. So it's sort of, okay, if I don't get up at 7 or I don't get up at 8, whatever time you pick, then I'm probably not gonna take my meds on time. I'm probably not gonna, you know, get my workout in, or, you know, eat my breakfast on time, whatever it is, all that kind of stuff. So sometimes you've got to do things like have an accountability partner. So if you don't live with anybody, might be a deal like, okay, I'm going to text you when I wake up, and you text me when you wake up. That way, you know, someone cares if you've gotten up at a certain time or not. And you have that little bit of, you know, accountability of, okay, they're going to know if I didn't, you know, get up until 10 o'clock because I texted them at 10 o'clock, that kind of thing. So sometimes you got to have buddies for some of these things. But it's certainly, you know, very important to try and keep some things. Like a lot of what I'll say today is like everything in moderation. People have probably seen those lovely memes on Facebook about, you know, every hour's color coded and everything is down to the minute. That works wonderfully for some people. Some people hate it. And some people just, you know, they're like, I can't live like that. I just want to kind of roll with the punches. What I suggest is that you have 2 or 3 or 4 things at the most that you kind of have, okay, by 10 o'clock, I'm going to have this done. Or, you know, I'm definitely going to make sure I eat my 3 meals today at these approximate times. Have a few touchstones, a few things that you know you're going to do at certain times. And the rest of the time can be a little bit more flexible. That's assuming, of course, it depends on your work demands, your, you know, childcare demands and things like that. But getting over scheduled and over routine can just kind of get you demotivated, frustrated, think, oh, now I'm behind, when really you're behind on what you've decided for yourself and created for yourself. So it sounds like a bit of a middling position, but it's true, a bit of moderation. So, you know, have a bit of an idea of your top priorities of things you want to get done, main things that you want to have on your schedule, and then give yourself some grace on the other stuff. Hopefully that makes sense. So now I'm going to talk to you about sleep. So we've already kind of touched on it. It's harder to sleep these days. Sometimes people are worried. They're having a harder time turning their minds off. Also, our activity levels for some folks has gone down, depending, you know, what your roles are. If you're used to, you know, a commute, working during the day, or getting up and doing certain chores, maybe doing yard work, whatever it is, some of those things might not be happening. So we're not actually building up as much sleep pressure, which means that you might not feel as tired at the same time as you used to. So that becomes a challenge of, okay, how do I get enough? Sleep pressure is kind of what builds up during the day that makes you tired to go to sleep. So if you're not doing as much as you used to do during the day, you're not going to have as much sleep pressure. So it's going to be harder to get to sleep at night. And a lot of the things that help us sleep at night are things we actually do during the day. So, you know, if you are waking up at the right, you know, at the same time every day, that wake up time is actually the most important thing to kind of having a sleep schedule. So no matter what time you go to bed, if you can pick up whatever the time you are going to get up. So if it's 8 o'clock, doesn't matter if you fall asleep at midnight, 3 a.m., 8 p.m., whatever it is, you get up at 8 o'clock when your alarm goes off. That will help you to build up enough sleep pressure for the next day. So it's easy to kind of get your days and nights reversed if you don't have a wake up time, because the temptation is, oh, I didn't fall asleep till like 3 in the morning, so I'm going to get up at 10. But then that night, you've only been up since 10, you have less sleep pressure, so you don't go to bed till 2 a.m., whatever it is. So it can kind of get out of whack. So if you're having trouble kind of figuring out how do I start, try and pick a wake up time and stick with that. Also, if whatever time it is you decide to wake up, having some bright light in the morning is very helpful. So you roll out of bed, you know, open your blinds, turn on your lights. Our bodies and minds are attuned to light. That's how we used to decide when we were going to wake up and go to sleep before somebody invented electricity. So if you can, oh, there we go. If you can have that bright light in the morning, that will help you to actually like literally wake up. And then the opposite, of course, at night is to try to cut off some of that bright light before you're trying to go to sleep. So I usually tell people aim for like a screen-free hour if you can before bed. That will help you to let your brain wind down. Sometimes I actually have people setting alarms to remind them to start their bedtime routine, which sounds kind of goofy at first, but if you're someone who might get sucked into scrolling social media or sucked into, binging Netflix, I'm not throwing stones. I've done both of those things. I have a thing, my Fitbit says I set a bedtime on there and I get an alert at 10 o'clock, like, okay, start to get ready for bed. And so that's a cue to like, okay, this one's the last episode, or I'm going to turn off Facebook or whatever it is. So we can use technology to our advantage with that kind of stuff. And if you really are having a hard time sleeping, a couple things to remember. Things like, don't stay in bed if you're not asleep. Now, people often look at me funny when I say this. They think, oh, I'm resting. You really want bed to be a place where you sleep, and you want your body to associate that. So if you're just tossing and turning, or you're on your phone scrolling, get out of bed until you feel drowsy. So until you kind of yawn or your eyes are heavy, really that feeling like, oh, I could go to sleep, then take yourself back to bed at that point. So I know that's tricky. Sometimes you got to find a quiet place. You don't want to disturb other people. Just try and find something quiet to do, whether it's sorting socks, reading a book, knitting, something that's peaceful. We'll talk about some relaxation strategies in a little bit. You can use some of those, but just try not to stay in bed if you're just tossing and turning for hours. It just makes you frustrated. It doesn't help. Also try and talk yourself through it. Like, a night or two of bad sleep is not going to be the end of the world. People are quite resilient. They do manage with, the odd night of poor sleep. Talk to everybody who has a newborn or has had a newborn. They know this. So try and decatastrophize. It's easy to lay in bed and go, oh my gosh, you need that horrible sleep math of like, oh, if I get to sleep right now, I'll get 5 hours of sleep or 2 hours of sleep. It doesn't actually help you get to sleep. It helps you to ruminate and get ramped up again. So those are sort of the things at night. We'll talk about some things that you can do during the day that can help you sleep. So one of them is that wake up time that I mentioned before. Another thing is getting some movement in. So again, if you're stuck at home and you're used to going to work or to volunteer or to school or whatever, you probably are missing out on some what we call like incidental movement, like, the steps you get when you're not quote unquote exercising. Your big commute is maybe from your bedroom to your couch in your living room. You're not getting all those steps in. So that can make, like I was saying, that can make you less tired at night. So it becomes even more important to get a little bit of that intentional movement in, whether it's a walk, if you like to work out, if you want to have a dance party in your living room, whatever it is, those things will actually help you to sleep as well. So it's a twofer, right? It's helpful in terms of making you feel better during the day, but it can also help you build up that sleep pressure. So that's where it can help you to do those things at night. Now, I know people are kind of maybe missing out on the gym that they're used to going to, or perhaps if they have, groups of or social things they do while they're exercising. So it can be a change to try and figure out, what am I going to do now instead of those things. Fortunately, all the fitness professionals out there have really stepped up on things like Zoom or YouTube. There's lots of nice free options on there. It is still allowed for us to go outside and go for walks or runs if that's something you enjoy, bike rides, that kind of stuff. So those are still all options for us. So also a nice opportunity to have a change of scene, because our brains also like novel things and variety. So if you can get outside, that will also be a bonus as well. So I will come back to that in a minute too. You can't see my slides, but I'm trying to follow them so I don't lose my train of thought. Another thing that helps us all, again, in the body and mind, is just nutrition. So this does not have to be the time where you're trying to have a quote unquote perfect, diet. No pressure. I know there's different challenges out there in terms of when can you get to the grocery store. Are there things there that you want when you get there? Because there's been some shortages. So this is just very basic, starvation is a state of stress for the body. So if you're someone who doesn't eat when you're stressed, sometimes you have to kind of force yourself a little bit to just try and get something in you. Doesn't have to be anything big or heavy, but if you realize at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, oh my gosh, I haven't eaten anything all day, that's just another way that our body can experience stress. Because if you think back to caveman days, if people were not getting any food, they saw it as an emergency, right? our bodies are like, hey, what are you doing? Is there a, is there a drought? There's nothing that we've hunted, what's going on? So then it ramps everything up, gets you in fight or flight mode. So if you can, try and eat regularly. Again, those routines, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but those routines can help you to try and keep your body stress, that inflammation in your body down. So, drinking water, eating the fruits and veggies, that kind of stuff. And even comfort foods. There's a reason they call them comfort foods. We're all kind of stressed right now. Having some ice cream or some chips is not going to kill you. And they do bring you comfort. So enjoy the things that bring you comfort in a time of a lot of stress, right? So you're probably not going to feel fantastic if you just eat ice cream and chips. So enjoy them when you have them, and then go eat some other stuff too that will make you feel good in the long run, right? So I put a slide here about nature too, with a really pretty picture of a forest, just to give you the visual. I mentioned a minute ago about going outside to exercise. Nature is a balm. It is a huge help when you're stressed out. Our brains are wired for the exact kind of stimulation that nature gives us. So the different sensory things that happen, there's a lot more visual variation in a forest than in your living room, just in terms of colors, textures, just different types of light, that kind of thing. So our brains are much happier if we get outside. I know, again, that can be easier for some than others. Some people have backyards, some people are in apartments, things like that. But if you can access the outdoors somewhere safely and legally, it's really beneficial to your stress level to do that. It reduces anger, fear, stress, like things that can, it's almost, there's some people that almost prescribe nature as a treatment in terms of those things. And it increases pleasant feelings. So it makes us feel good too. So if you can't get outside, all of that said, even just looking at really nice photographs of the outdoors is like a not terrible substitute. So if you're really like, I can't get there, like transportation or anything like that, just, if you've got a device of some kind, Google, nature photographs. There are many. You can find whatever environment you like the best, and check that out. If you can't actually physically get outside as much as you'd like. How am I doing on time? I knew I made too many slides. That's okay. So I thought I'd throw out a couple tips, like I said, about medication schedules. So, if you're doing all those things that we just talked about, if you're sleeping, if you're, focusing on your sleep, your nutrition, you're getting some exercise, you're getting outside, you're rocking this pandemic, you're doing all of those things. The medication stuff, this is where apps or alarms are our friends. These are the same kind of information that you get anytime. Sometimes anchoring it with that, if you're definitely eating your meals at regular times and taking your pills at the same times is helpful. Sometimes making it a more conscious thing. So sometimes I talk to people and I say, well, I thought I took it, and then the next day I look in my dosette and I realize, oh no, I didn't actually take it. Or they think, oh, did I take my morning pill? I don't think I did. I'll take another one. And then they realize, oh no, I took too much. So actually, when you take it, whenever it is, if you use a dosette or an alarm, you actually make it a conscious thing of like, okay, I took my morning pill, and just say it out loud. Might sound goofy. Warn your family or friends that you live with that you're going to talk to yourself, but just making that a conscious thing and hearing yourself say it might help you remember that you have actually done it, which can be helpful as well. Okay, I'm just going to take a sip of water here. I mentioned off the top that connection is something that a lot of us are missing right now. So I'm sure everybody there watching is thinking of somebody that they'd like to be seeing or that they haven't seen as much as they'd like to recently. And social connection is actually one of the most important things for our physical and mental health as well. We are social animals. We evolved to do better in groups, right? We survived better if we had people around us. So we know that having some social connections has big impacts on our physical health, on our immune system, our longevity. People literally live longer if they have more social connections, as well as our mental health. But of course, right now, this becomes a whole different thing to try and connect with the people that you like and love. So you've got everyone who's on here now knows about Zoom, probably know about FaceTime, Skype, things like that. This is another area where moderation is key. So like I was saying with routine, you don't want to have, every hour accounted for. It is actually, I'm sure you guys have been seeing some articles about this, it's actually more tiring and more challenging for our bodies and our minds to deal with video conferencing all the time. It's not the same as being with people. There's a whole bunch of theories on why that is. I won't get into all the nitty-gritty of it. But essentially, like, you kind of have to think of this as like an activity that takes some effort, even though it is maybe doing something for fun, if you're connecting with friends. So you can't, I would recommend against, you can do whatever you want, but I would say try not to book an entire day of video conferences, right? Think about the stuff that still works well on the phone. So if you've got a friend that you've always connected with on the phone, keep doing that. If someone says, can we have a Zoom call at 3 o'clock? And you're like, I've already got 2 Zoom calls this morning or another one tonight. Can we do it tomorrow? So just to try and, there is such thing as too much of a good thing. So just to put that on your radar. So balance these times, where you're connecting online with some off times. So that's the good times to go outside, especially. I've been looking at some stuff about vision and how when we're looking at screens, actually going outside is actually really helpful to kind of reset our visual systems. And then just so you kind of have some time online connecting and some time offline and just having that downtime. And also remember there's ways to try and connect with folks offline. So you can, with proper social distancing, still go for walks with other people, or we set some Muskoka chairs far away on my lawn and my parents came over to visit the other day. So we're keeping our distance, but we're still connecting that way. You can go really old school and actually write someone a card or a letter. And I would say this is all assuming that you do have people that you want to talk to or are missing. If there are people out there that are struggling, there are support lines. If you just haven't heard a voice in a while, if you live alone and you're not able to connect with people because they're far away, CMHA has a support line, which I put on my slide, but I can send you if you need that. You can go Google that as well. And these are folks that are very happy to you don't have to be in the midst of a big crisis. It's just if you're feeling kind of down, you're feeling lonely, those are normal things to feel. And you can connect with the other people that way as well. I'd say keep that in mind. I also put a slide here about too much connection. So some people are feeling a bit edgy being around their family all the time. They might have a bunch of different things they're all trying to do in a small space. Some people need connection with people a lot more than others. So you guys probably heard of like introversion versus extroversion and that kind of thing. So if you've got some people in your house that are really used to being alone and they like that, and now they're together a lot, they're struggling. Got other people that really like to be around people and they're at home not seeing very many people, so they're struggling. So it can be a challenge to get along with the other people that you are able to connect with sometimes. So this is where things like setting some boundaries, like I love you and I'm going to stay in my room for these hours because I need some downtime. Or how about we absolutely have some quality time at, this time we'll watch our favorite show together, not just sit in the same room together all day and kind of not really connect, but not really be a part either. So sort of making that a conscious, purposeful thing is sometimes helpful. And I would just say try to give each other lots of grace and patience too, because that's really hard for everybody. The other thing is sort of coping with multiple roles. So if anyone out there is, working still from home somehow, or if they're parenting and their kids are at home trying to do school at home, or both, if you're a teacher. So it's again, trying to set up a good routine for everybody of like, these are the times that we can, do different things. And these are the times where I need you to leave me alone so I can do my work meeting or my schoolwork, that kind of stuff. If you can set up spaces, I know it's not always possible depending on the size and setup of your home. Like this is where we're going to be when we're working and we'll try and relax over there. It lets us kind of have that context and our brain kind of walks away from the workspace if it's possible. That's not always doable. But this is the time where discuss with the family, discuss with each other, how can we make this happen? I know for my kids today, I sent them out to walk around the block while I did this, or else you would have seen my daughter 7 times already. So they're getting their outdoor exercise right now as a way to do that. But yeah, there's a lot of give and take, and I think everyone's learning as we go. I think, what are we, 5 or 6 weeks into this whole business? And but yeah, it will continue to evolve, but just to kind of be aware, you're not alone in that. Lots of people are having a hard time with that. And it is just kind of additional stress to kind of work through. Looking at my time, golly, okay, I didn't talk fast enough. I didn't get through all the things. That's okay. I wanted to touch base on relaxation strategies and meditation strategies. Really, our breath is the way that we can best kind of connect with ourselves. It's portable, it's free, it can be done anytime, anywhere. The key there is, I don't know if you guys have heard of like belly breathing or diaphragmatic breathing. So a lot of times we end up taking shallow breaths up from our chest. If you can try and take a breath, your diaphragm's a little muscle underneath your lungs that helps your lungs fully inflate. Pardon me. So if you're a singer or an actor or speaker, an athlete, sometimes you learn about your diaphragm so that you can use your breath in those ways. So you might be familiar with that. So it's as simple as, if you are kind of feeling at the end of your rope, if you can take 5 or 6 long, slow belly breaths, that can just slow everything down. Literally, when we're under a lot of stress, it can take our the front part of our brain offline. That's the part that kind of does all the advanced thinking and planning and executive functioning. And I tell my kids it's the lizard brain or the dinosaur brain at the back, the older part of our brain that helps us just make sure we're breathing and hungry and all those sorts of things that keeps us literally physically alive. That part kind of gets to be in charge when we're under a ton of stress. So if you can take a few of those long, slow, deep breaths for a couple minutes, that can get your front brain back online, help you to think through things more clearly, help you to, have a little bit of perspective on the things that might be really getting you down. So that's the most, I don't know, so I won't say basic, but the first kind of stepping stone of learning some relaxation strategies. So if you can put one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly and try and direct the air down to your belly as a way to try and get the hang of that. Some people find it easier laying down or in a recliner. They can get a better sense of their ribs moving, because your back and your front ribs will move when you take a belly breath. So it does feel very different than a normal. When I say to people to take a deep breath and they go, I'm like, that's not a belly breath. That's a chest breath. So when you breathe with your belly, you're going to notice your belly goes out and in, not your shoulders going up and down. So if you can think of a balloon blowing up in your tummy between your belly button and your spine kind of thing. And then, okay, so you just try and get that, the feel for that. And then over time, if you can make it so that it's a full cycle of breath, so sort of inhaling, pause, exhale, and pause, takes about 10 seconds. So you have about 6 breaths a minute. If you can get yourself to that point, that can get you into a state of relaxation without doing a whole lot else, which is pretty cool. So it does take a little bit of practice, it takes a little bit of focus to do that. But also focusing just on your breath is kind of a nice way to take your mind off of some other things that might be bugging you for a few minutes. Gives you a little bit of space. So once you've got kind of the belly breath piece down, you can look at things like progressive muscle relaxation. So that's basically you go through your whole body. I'm trying to say it fast. We only got 5 minutes left. You take your body either from head to toe or toe to head, whatever you prefer. You tense the muscle for a moment. Notice how it feels tense, and then let it relax. Notice how it feels relaxed. The whole time you can be belly breathing while you're doing that. And again, it's just a way to build some awareness. Where am I holding tension? Some people have it in their jaw. Some people have their shoulders up in their ears. So it can help you notice that and kind of let that tension go in your body. And that can help you feel better in your mind. Our bodies and our minds are very connected. So if your body's feeling yucky, your mind is going to be more likely to feel yucky, and vice versa. So breathing is a way to kind of take care of both of them at the same time. So I will say in 1 minute or less, there's also videos on YouTube or apps out there that'll help you with mindfulness meditation as well. Progressive muscle relaxation there are some of those videos on YouTube as well. Also yoga is available on YouTube, lots of different practices there. Mindfulness is kind of a way to meditate in which you're trying to pay attention to the present moment. So you're just trying to notice what's happening right now without any judgment. So you're trying to notice what's happening in your senses without judging anything. So there's a whole lot more I could say about that, but I'll just move along. But there is lots of nice apps and videos and books out there on mindfulness if you're interested in that. What will I talk about next? be here for an hour and a half if I said all of these things. I thought I would touch just maybe for a minute on the idea of grief. So a lot of people, when they hear the word grief, they think of a death, right? That is oftentimes when we're grieving a loss of a loved one. But grief can be a response to any loss. So there's a ton of losses that can happen in the context of the pandemic. So it could be, loss of freedom, loss of work, loss of social connections, all the things we've been touching on. But grief it can be pretty complicated. You can feel sad one minute, angry the next, disappointed. You can actually have a moment of happiness and then feel guilty that you're feeling happy when you're supposed to be grieving. It's very confusing. It can be very, it's something that if you let yourself feel those feelings, you can actually move through it a little bit more easily. So the way that you kind of do that is to try and name what it is you're feeling. I put a pretty emotion wheel on here, but it's lots of different colors that you can't see. Name what you're feeling. Is it I'm sad about this? I'm angry about this? Whatever it is, try to notice what it's pulling you to do. Try and notice it makes me want to jump in bed and pull the covers over my head, or it makes me feel like I want to, punch my hand through the wall. You don't have to do those things. You just have to notice that that's what you're feeling pulled to do. And notice what happens in your body as well, because all emotions have a physical component as well as the thinking and emotional component that we're kind of more aware of. So sort of putting those things on your radar can help you to sort of work through that grief a little bit more, I don't want to say quickly, but just work through it in a way that it doesn't stay with you for quite as long. 2 minutes. I will tell you about a grounding strategy. How about that? Pick and choose as I roll through my slides here. So I mentioned mindfulness a minute ago, and I mentioned sort of trying to notice what's happening in your body and notice what's happening with your emotions. A way to kind of do that, if you're feeling like everything is sort of too much, like you're feeling like your emotions are very high or strong, you're not sure what to do with them, there's some things called grounding strategies, and these are to try and bring you back into your body, try and help you to feel calmer. And so one of them has a nice handy mnemonic. It's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So if you're feeling really stressed and feeling really upset, try and look around and see 5 things you can see. So I'm in my office here. I'd say I see my computer, my pen, my Kleenex box, my lamp, my phone, right? So you can always look around and see whatever's around you. 4 things you can hear. So that might be a fan running, someone's voice, the dog panting, whatever it is. 3 things you can feel. So this can be notice how your feet feel in your shoes, notice the fabric of your clothes or the couch or the chair you're sitting on, those sorts of things. So things you can feel with your sense of touch. If you can notice anything, 2 things you can smell. Sometimes you can't access those or you don't want to, or 1 thing you can taste. So sometimes if you are having all these strong feelings, if you do have something like a peppermint or something with a strong flavor, it can help bring you back into your body. So these are things that are in the moment going to help you feel just a little bit more grounded. So in your body, aware of what's going on, not under quite as much stress. So maybe I will just wrap up real quick and then turn it over to questions. So I think the take-home messages I would put out there is that change is stressful, and we've undergone a ton of change in the last few weeks. If you build up some of these healthy habits that we talked about today, you can build the capacity to cope with that stress. You can reach out to other people and connect when you can. That's really helpful. And just try and take good care of yourself and those around you. Yeah. So have people asked us some questions?
There we go. Thank you so much, Dr. Vernon-Scott. I'm so sorry about all the technical difficulties. Thank you for being so flexible and just rolling with it. We do have quite a few questions that have been sent in, so I'm going to do my best to get through as many as possible here.
Sure.
So sometimes anxiety can trigger my seizures. Is there anything in particular I can do to make sure that I don't have more seizures? I feel like my anxiety is at an all-time high because of COVID-19.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it sometimes might sound a bit trite, but again, doing those breathing strategies, if you're feeling your anxiety getting really, really high, or that grounding strategy when your anxiety is getting high, those things in the moment can help you feel a little bit, just help you, get an inch of space in your mind. And then over time, to build in those other things, like movement can really help with anxiety, helps get that physical adrenaline out of your body. So it helps if you're familiar with Clara Hughes, she says she has a hashtag movement is medicine. So she has struggled with depression and anxiety quite a bit. She's an Olympic athlete. So working those things in, those good things can help you to deal with the anxiety that we're dealing with now too.
Awesome. Since COVID-19, my 10-year-old daughter keeps telling me that her stomach hurts. Could this be anxiety? Is there anything that I can do to help her?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, kids especially, all of us do it to some extent, but kids especially can experience their emotions in physical ways because of that mind-body connection. So yeah, I mean, it's probably it's a good bet to wonder if it's anxiety for sure. I think kids respond really well to kind of a lot of things that I was talking about too. My daughter actually learned belly breathing in her kindergarten class and was very amazed when I told her I taught people that. And she goes, "Why didn't they just learn it in kindergarten?" So if you can work, there's like Cosmic Yoga is like a yoga program on YouTube. Doing things like exercise with them as well, dance party in the living room, going for a walk every day, helping them with routines. Even just asking her how, are there things you're worried about? Are there things that you want to ask mommy or daddy about? Because kids they can absorb a lot of the anxiety that we have too. They'll hear bits and pieces and they might not know what it all means. So sometimes just putting it out on the table, like, are there things you're thinking about? And can you help them understand the best you can what's going on? That can help them feel a lot better as well.
Great. How can I deal with more feelings of stress and depression that come along with feeling isolated while social distancing?
Yeah, no, I know it's a hard one, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, that's where maybe trying to reach out, like I was saying, don't book too many Zoom meetings, but if you haven't talked to another person in a day or two or three, like that's a good time to say, oh, friends or family, I really need to meet up with somebody. They'll probably be pretty happy to hear that too. They probably need to talk. They want to talk to you too. I think sometimes when people are feeling depressed, they think, oh, I'm the only one that feels this way, or no one's going to want to talk to me. But I know with some friends I've reached out to, and they're like, oh, I'm so glad that you called or you texted, because I didn't want to bug you, but I was feeling that way too. So if you can try and make those connections, it can be really helpful.
Don't be afraid to reach out.
Yeah, I think people, especially when you're depressed, that black paint on your glasses, it makes everything seem negative, and it makes it seem like, no one's going to want to talk to me, or those nasty thoughts, right, that come with depression. And, if you can, I know it's hard to do it, but to be able to go, okay, I'm just going to put it out there. And most people are really happy to hear, from other people, especially right now. They really want to talk to each other, right? So, yeah.
Awesome. Let's see. Do you think that reading the news can help or hinder my stress? My husband keeps telling me to stop reading it, but I feel like it keeps me more informed.
Yes, there's another spot where having a little bit of balance is really, really helpful. I think there might be a space to set some boundaries for ourselves. So I know for me at the beginning, the first couple of weeks, I think my phone was like an appendage. It was attached to my hand because I was reading every single article and because I wanted to know, right? Because we don't like uncertainty. And then after a while, I was like, oh my goodness, I gotta put that away to do something else. So whether it's picking a couple of times a day to catch up, update yourself, and then turning off the notifications for things so that you're not getting new articles flashing up in your face every day. And people have a different need for knowledge as well. So some people really want to know everything. So that might be the person asking the question today. And their partner might be like, why are you doing this? No one really knows anything anyway. What's the point? And so there's a spot where different needs, right? Different things help different people. So if you're noticing that it's increasing your anxiety, you read those articles and then your mind starts to spin and you can't sleep. It's like, okay, I shouldn't read those articles before bed, right? Or if I'm going to catch up, I should do it when I wake up in the morning. So just like maybe set some routines about news usage. Same thing with social media. Don't be on it all the time, because you'll hear 50 million people's opinions on everything and then get you all wrapped up. So it's like a spot for boundaries and moderation, I think, in terms of that.
Yeah, definitely. I laughed a little bit when I read that one, because that could have been a conversation between myself and my husband.
Yeah, many households like that.
Yeah. So right now, home feels safe and the outside world feels a bit scary. Do you have any suggestions for how we can mentally prepare for the transition back into the world when it begins to open back up?
Yeah, that's a good one. Oh, I wish I knew exactly how to answer that myself. I think you're right. Home does, because it is where we've been told to be the last little while, right? Stay home, stay safe. I think, it's going to be gradual, and different people are going to, again, vary on how they decide they're going to go back and do things. So some people might just be like, I just want to get up there. I can't stand to be home anymore. And I know lots of people are saying, even if things reopen, I'm not going to jump right back in. So that's where you can try and make note of those emotions that you have and go, what feels right? What feels maybe like I can push myself a little bit so that I'm not stuck at home all the time, but not get, not just jump in whole hog. So probably baby steps is the summary, right? So to be able to, okay, I haven't been to the grocery store in a month and I've been getting it delivered. Maybe I can try to go there at, at a certain hour where I think it'll be less busy, and see how that feels. So just sort of stretching those comfort zones a little bit at a time and see how that goes.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. When should I seek out additional help for my depression and anxiety?
Yeah, and I know that's even more tricky right now because it's hard to find the people that are helping.
Yeah.
I think the kind of rule of thumb is if it's kind of getting in the way of your work or your social life.
Okay.
Now our work and our social lives are kind of screwed up right now, so that can be a bit harder to say. But I think it's always better to err. Like sometimes I've talked to people that said, "Oh, I didn't know if I was like unwell enough to need a psychologist or a therapist." I'm like, well, go and find out. If, when we can. And a lot of my colleagues are able to do some treatments online and on the phone. So people are certainly out there doing things. But if you're wondering about that, it's probably a good time to try and get that help. Everyone can benefit. And if you feel like your mood and your anxiety are really hindering you, it's a good time to check it out and see what you can do to feel a bit better.
Great, thank you. That's great advice. Any suggestions about grocery shopping? I experience great anxiety.
Yeah, I think you're not alone.
Yeah.
And I think it's an activity that we used to sort of take for granted, I think. Many people, although I know lots of people that are not a fan of the grocery store at the best of times. Being as prepared for yourself as you can. So control the things you can control and try and breathe through the stuff you can't control. So if you feel better with like a cloth mask, having some extra hand sanitizer if you can find it, taking some steps to plan ahead so that you can get in and out as efficiently as possible. Those sorts of things to try and make yourself feel calmer when you go. Taking some belly breaths while you stand in line or while you're waiting for someone, who you feel like is getting a little bit too close to you, those sorts of things. I think those are the things that you can control within your own body and your own mind. And unfortunately, sometimes you have to just let go of the stuff that other people do, which is really hard right now.
Definitely. Awesome. So we'll try, and there's 2 more questions. We'll try and answer them both here. Normally, stress doesn't seem to affect my seizures too much. Can that change over time?
That's a good question. I don't know if we have good data to answer that.
Yeah.
And I think it's good for you that it doesn't affect your seizures. I think there's lots of other good reasons to cope with stress too, though. So I think being proactive about doing things that help you to manage it, that will help with your overall health, which won't hurt your seizures either.
Awesome. And then we have one last one here, but I think you really touched on this one quite a bit. So hopefully this person has some more strategies on how to deal with this stress. But it says, I'm terrified to leave my house because of COVID-19. Are there any techniques I can use to decrease my stress levels?
Yeah, I think everything we talked about today.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes what people will find if they do like even a brief relaxation exercise, and again, have like fair expectations for yourself. If getting even just stepping outside your house is a big deal for you right now, the first step is to go out on your front porch or your front doorstep, and stand there, breathe through that, notice the anxiety, notice where it happens in your body. Try and see if it changes at all as you stay out there for a few minutes. Try not to go back in until it starts to decrease even a tiny little bit. And then if you get back in and go, oh, that's enough for today. And then tomorrow you might think, okay, I'm gonna, take it out, step down to my curb or go to my community mailbox and check my mail. So you can do these things in a systematic kind of step-by-step kind of way, and and decide, in a few weeks I want to be able to get to the grocery store or whatever it might be able to go for a walk around my block. So it doesn't, if you're feeling terrified, that's a strong word, just try and let yourself expose yourself to those things just bit by bit, and then be kind to yourself in between the exposures.
Great. Thank you so much.
Oh,
so we are coming to the end of our time today. I just wanted to say a huge thank you for joining us and handling our technical difficulties with such ease. I know you're exceptionally busy during this time, and we so appreciate that you took the time to share such valuable information with our clients.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks everybody for coming. Hope you found something helpful.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.